Get down.
Welcome back to Zoe's Movie Reviews, and today, to celebrate the 77th birthday of Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'm going to be telling you my top 5 favorite films by the Austrian actor.
Wow, this is really cool.
Now, Arnold Schwarzenegger is one of those unique individuals who have lived a very fascinating life. Not only is he an actor, he's also a former bodybuilder, businessman, filmmaker, former governor, and of course, like I mentioned before, he's also an actor whose film career started in 1970, which has spanned 54 years. And throughout those 54 years, he's been in countless movies. And like I said today, I'm just going to give you my top 5. If I was to go through every single movie he's made that I've been a fan of or that I enjoy, we'll be here for 2 hours. But I tried to narrow it down to 5. But before we get into it, if you haven't done so already, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It does help this channel grow, help me reach out to more people. Also share the video, hit that like button, and with that out the way, let's continue on.
And here we go.
Like I've mentioned, I'm going to just give you my top 5, and I'm going to go through these really quickly. But I do have 3 honorable mentions. Movies that didn't quite make the top 5 cut, and one that really should, but I did not want 2 franchises within this countdown. So one of my honorable mentions is Conan the Barbarian from 1982. Now this movie is just dumb fun. It does not hold up to today, so if this was one of your first time viewing it, you probably wouldn't understand the phenomenon that it was when it first came out. But I have a good time with it. It's not a movie that I will rewatch a lot, but it's okay. It's just one of those good, fun, dumb guy movies. Have nothing to do with the comic books, but I had to mention it within this countdown. So Conan the Barbarian, honorable mention, along with Twins from 1988. Twins is what I believe was one of his first foray into comedy, and him and Danny DeVito, I remember the movie was fine. It was pretty funny. Plus, there was supposed to be a sequel to this movie called Triplets with Eddie Murphy, so I was interested to see how that would have turned out, but the plans for that fell through. It's genuinely a funny movie. I have not seen it in many years, but it is a movie that I do remember and enjoy very much, and it's one of the movies that a lot of people do talk about as one of their favorites. And the last honorable mention I have, which I will go into details when I get to the other movie within this franchise. While it should be in my top 5, I just did not want to include 2 movies from the Terminator franchise. So Terminator 2 is one of my honorable mentions.
What?
I will break it down further when I get to the Terminator movie. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. I just didn't want to be redundant, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be the movie on everybody else's top 5 or top 10 list. And like I said before, I will get into more details of why this one did not make the cut. But if you had this as your number 1 movie, I completely understand that it's a phenomenal movie, one of the best action movies of all time. And Terminator 2, honorable mention. Now getting into the top 5, my number 5 movie from Arnold Schwarzenegger is another time that him and James Cameron got together, the forgotten James Cameron movie, and that's 1994 True Lies. Now, True Lies is one of those rare movies that's able to combine multiple genres. It's an action movie dealing with Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was the king of action throughout the 80s and 90s. So you have your action stuff. It's also a romantic movie and a comedy at the same time. True Lies is one of those movies. It still holds up to the day, even though some of the action scenes are a little tropey now. The story still holds up. Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jamie Lee Curtis have great chemistry on the screen. Matter of fact, the chemistry was so good in this movie that Arnold Schwarzenegger had to convince his then wife that him and Jamie Lee Curtis hated the dance scene and they did not enjoy filming it, because on screen you would think they really were a couple. So, True Lies, number 5. And coming in right after that, at number 5, a movie that made my top 10 Christmas movies from last year, and that's 1996's Jingle All the Way. I've already talked about this movie in my Christmas special, so if you want to know deeper details, go check that video out. But Jingle All the Way to me is one of those good heartwarming movies that showed Arnold Schwarzenegger in a different light, because during this time he was in action movie after action movie, and this one kind of brought it back, not only something that was a little more comedic but a family atmosphere. This, along with Kindergarten Cop, I think are the two family movies that he has made. And Jingle All the Way is a movie that I watch every Christmas. It gets me in the Christmas spirit. I love the story. I love the back and forth between Arnold and Sinbad. And it's my number 4 favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. Moving right along, and these top 3 are all-time classics. All 3 of these are in my top 50 favorite movies of all time. And number 3 for me is a movie that I was a little late to the party in seeing, and that was 1990's Total Recall. Arnold Schwarzenegger as the character of Quaid in this movie was phenomenal. The special effects in this movie are outstanding. Not quite on the level of Terminator 2, but I do believe this is his second best movie as far as combining action and special effects. He had multiple one-liners in this movie. The story itself is phenomenal. You can rewatch it over and over and over. And while I did like the remake more than most people did, it still does not hold a candle to this movie. If you haven't seen Total Recall, go check it out. It's a phenomenal science fiction action movie, and it's my number 3 favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. Now we're here at the top 2. And both of these movies are phenomenal, outstanding in my opinion. And we're down to Terminator and Predator. Now both of these movies are, most of the time we hear the name Arnold Schwarzenegger, it's the first movies that come to mind, along with Terminator 2. But for me right now, my number 2 favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movie is 1987's Predator. Now Predator was another one of those movies that combined multiple genres. When you first go into it, it looked like your typical military shoot 'em up movie. It starts out very action-packed, and then it moves to a slasher-type horror movie where the Predator is hunting Arnold Schwarzenegger and his crew down one by one. And then once it's revealed who the killer is, it quickly turns into a sci-fi movie. For this to be a straightforward movie with a straightforward plot, it still holds up to the day. And if you haven't seen this movie in the 4K upgrade, do yourself a favor, go check it out. It brings new life to the movie, where the special effects still hold up today, many years later. It's an outstanding movie. It's my number 2 favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movie.
We found them sometimes without their skin. And sometimes much, much worse.
This thing is hunting us. All of us.
We make a stand now, or there will be nobody left.
I got a score to settle.
We both got scores to settle.
You must have wounded it. Its blood was on the leaves.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
One ugly motherfucker.
Which leaves us at my number 1 spot, 1984's The Terminator. Now Terminator 2, had I included it in this list, it would have been number 2. But the reason why, even though I think it's a phenomenal movie, it's an outstanding movie, it's a movie that I can rewatch over and over and over. The reason why I put it slightly behind the original Terminator is, personally, I am a fan of horror movies. Anytime there's a franchise that goes from horror to sci-fi, like Alien to Aliens, both phenomenal movies, I'm gonna always be more partial to the movie that follows the horror genre. Now, The Terminator, not only is it my favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. The thing that I love the most about this movie is the simplicity of the story, but yet the story is so complex and has many layers to it. I'm one of the people, every time there's a new release of The Terminator, I go get it. I have like 6 or 7 copies of this movie. I can never get enough of it. This is the movie that really put Arnold Schwarzenegger on the map as far as an action hero, a blockbuster must-see actor. And the thing that I appreciate the most, this is the only movie that I can recall where Arnold Schwarzenegger is the villain. I appreciate the fact that he was the quote-unquote bad guy in this movie, where he was the one out doing the hunting, out doing the killing. And I know it's probably too late now, but I am a fan of the Terminator franchise. If I was to put every Arnold Schwarzenegger movie that I enjoy in my top 5, this really would have been a ranking of that franchise. I wish we would have got a return to form where he was the bad guy, he was the villain, and not the protagonist. And even though it's a little controversial to say, this is a horror movie. Now, I know the Terminator franchise moved more into the sci-fi genre from Terminator 2 to present day, but the first one is a horror movie, and I would take it a step further and say I believe it's a slasher movie. Granted, I know people don't like to use the term slasher when you're dealing with guns, but there's a scene where Arnold Schwarzenegger as T-800 punches straight through a guy's chest. He really does not need a gun to kill people. He's relentless, he's unstoppable. He would come at you 100%. There's nothing you can do. And if you was to put a mask on him, he would be another Jason Voorhees or souped up Michael Myers.
Come with me if you want to live. Come on!
So The Terminator is my all-time favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. It's one of my top 2 favorite movies of all time, and it's just a classic treat. So, what do you guys think? Do you agree with my list? Which one of Arnold Schwarzenegger's many great movies did I leave out or would have made your top 5? Remember, this is just my personal opinion. These are my favorite movies, not necessarily the best, but let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Remember, these are just my opinions, so let me know yours and keep your eyes open for my next video.